Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay away. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Okay. How is everybody? Hello, Barb. Hello, Larry. Hello, Lucy. Cat in a Hat. Angela, Dean Walker with the adorable grandbaby. Hello. Taterbug. Always good to see you. Lisa C. Angela. Deb H. Hello, everybody. Well, we are on day 2 of the Karen Read jury selection. Apparently, a court TV cameras caught some jurors on film, so I guess they're out. They've picked at least 2. They may have picked more since I last heard, but 2 from my last hearing. Probably more by the end of today, I would think. And this is really the crucial part of the process, because if we get a free Karen reader on the jury, no amount of evidence will convince them. You could show them a video of Karen Read backing into John O'Keefe going 24 miles an hour with her foot 75% down on the gas pedal, like her car data showed, doing it, clipping him, doing a 3-point turn and driving away. And the free Karen readers would say that it was CGI'd. There's no amount of evidence. 4 men and 3 women. Thank you, Busty. I've been busy working on this show. I didn't get to hear the latest. But what is new is that just in time for jury selection, strangely, I'm going to get a little conspiratorial here. Strangely, this couldn't wait till after the trial. This audit was done by a group called Five Stones Intelligence. Am I right? Five Stones Intelligence, yes. And it's wildly inaccurate and really looking into the Canton Police Department, and they made so many errors on their timeline that Innocence Fraud Watch pointed out. We'll go over that. And they concluded that there was strangely no nefarious activity by the police department, which I think we all knew, but they have some ideas for upgrades, such as give all the police officers and detectives work cell phones and stuff. I mean, we'll get into it. But it comes out right when jury is being selected. They couldn't wait till after jury is selected, when we have a gag order on the lawyers in this case. It couldn't have waited 2 weeks. It strangely comes out right at peak jury selection time. And it's, again, these are the kind of Five Stones intelligence are really innocence fraud enablers in this case, because they come in after the fact. They make suggestions, like crazy suggestions, like they should have photographed John O'Keefe's body in the position that he was found, when the reason that they didn't, A, it was a nor'easter, and B, they were doing life-saving measures. I mean, can you imagine? Excuse me, officer, what is it? Oh, EMT Flamati. Could you move over? Can you stop your life-saving measures so I can get a few pictures on my now Canton issued camera that's now going to take all the evidence pictures? Like new phone, Canton dispatched phone. I mean, these, it just felt like they had to say something. It seems like the Canton Police Department is pretty up on it. And they said, well, they should have had evidence collection, kits in their car. Yeah, I wish. Don't you think they wish they should have? They wish they had them at the time. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff. So we'll get into it, but first let's look at the news coverage of this audit, shall we?
This buffer zone is expanded, bigger than what it was for the first trial. Meanwhile, on this first day of jury selection, an independent audit about the Canton Police Department is being released about how it handled the night John O'Keefe was killed.
So we're day one of dealing with.
Wow, that beeping. That is a professional. That is a professional newscaster there. Some heavy beeping going on behind her, and she doesn't even look back. She's like, I'm just going to get what I have. I'm going to get what I have to say out in one take, not look back, not be distracted by this insane beeping of a car behind me. Cars can beep. I will produce my introductory clip in one take with not even a stutter or an
This new reality.
Supporters of Karen Read under court order to remain outside a buffer zone that surrounds the courthouse where the second trial of Karen Read is underway, an area expanded after the first trial.
We have a right to speak how we feel. This movement is not a dangerous movement.
On the same
Right. It's not a dangerous movement. The movement whose leader has 20 witness harassment counts, it's not dangerous. And has the town terrified. It's not dangerous. Not dangerous at all. We'll just dox you to death. Get rid of any kind of privacy. You'll live. You may never be the same again. You may never trust another human being again, but you'll live. See, we're not dangerous. We're not a dangerous movement. And yes, they have a right to express themselves, but just not in this 200 feet and a little bit more zone. I mean, what is this? They're like, what is this, Russia? We have a right to express ourselves. Sure you do. Just take it away, 200. Take it away from the courthouse. You don't have a right to poison the jury pool. They think they have a right to poison the jury pool. They think that they are so on the side of justice when in fact they're taking part in a huge injustice. Never mind that they have the right to poison the jury pool. My cat is snoring next to me. Can you hear him? I wonder if the mic's picking it up. I can hear him through my headphones. You hear that little? That's my cat. But seriously, They think they have the right to poison the jury pool. They think it's their patriotic, and not only do they have the right, they think it's their patriotic duty to poison the jury pool.
Today, as jury selection begins, a new report is released about the Canton Police Department, an independent audit prompted by the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe.
I don't know if he's breathing.
The report includes 911 calls from witnesses made when the victim was found outside a Canton home during a snowstorm. You can hear yelling in the background, identified as Karen Reed.
Yeah, you've got to get here, okay?
Okay. What's going on? Is he face down?
We just flipped him over.
Okay. And who's that in the background? Is that someone related?
Okay, that's his girlfriend. His name is Joan O'Keefe.
The audit details the initial steps of the investigation. Several findings include responding officers should have photographed O'Keefe before he was moved. Also, interviewed witnesses at the police department instead of.
And so here they go. Interviewed witnesses at the police department. I just feel like they're making up things. That sounds great, to interview witnesses at the police department, but if they didn't interview witnesses at the police department, they'd say, why didn't you interview them on scene? They could change their story. They could collude. Their stories could get mixed up, that you didn't interview them on scene. These are the biggest Monday morning quarterbackers, fraudsters. And I can't believe anybody's taking them seriously, but people are on both sides of the Karen Reed fence taking this thing seriously. Maintained a police presence at the scene. Oh, they think in a nor'easter and in freezing cold weather, what are they going to do? They're going to have guards guard the scene all night and day for weeks on end. What are they? All video files should have been turned over early. And should the metadata have been turned over early? 5 Stones Intelligence. Yeah, he asked, why come? Are you a free Karen reader? That's what the free Karen readers say. Why come? Yeah, and 5 Stones Intelligence too. Why come you didn't photograph John O'Keefe where he was found? Why come you didn't interview the witnesses at the police department? Why come you didn't maintain a vigil and a police presence at the scene? How come all the video files and the metadata weren't turned over? Even inconsequential things. This is the things, these kinds of things with voices of authority like 5 Stones Intelligence. Who are 5 Stones Intelligence? There are a bunch of people who come from intelligence backgrounds, at least leading the thing. And they spent 12 weeks at the Canton Police Department, and they know how to do it better than the people that are on the scene every day doing the job. I don't know. I'm skeptical. And these kind of things people take seriously and say, well, see, there was an audit of the independent audit. Totally independent. It just happened to come out during jury selection for Karen Reed at a time when her lawyers were gagged. Just happened to come out and cast some aspersions on the police department.
At the scene, as well as remained at the scene until state police arrived.
Is he breathing, you guys? No. It doesn't seem to be breathing.
Okay, do they know how to do CPR? Do they want to attempt CPR?
Can you guys, Gary, can you guys do CPR? No, I guess he's gone.
Now, while Karen Reed's defense team has argued that she is the victim of a police cover-up and was framed, the independent audit notes that they did not find any information that Canton police or its detectives were part of any conspiracy to frame anyone.
You don't say. Speaking of the buffer zone, Tom CPU, a YouTuber and a fanatical free Karen reader, got tossed out of the buffer zone banned from the buffer zone, told to never come back into the buffer zone. But they're trying to push it. They're bringing different kinds of flags into the buffer zone. So Innocence Fraud Watch clipped this and asked, is someone like Tom CPU going to get arrested in the buffer zone? So they're going to be like civil disobedience in the buffer zone during this trial. Good question. Or are they just going to get arrested from, are there going to be some kind of standout protest in the buffer zone? And they're going to get arrested on purpose, or they're going to just get arrested because their behavior is going to be crossing the line, as everything Free Karen Read, including her lawyers, do, which is crosses the line.
So you are in the buffer zone right now. I am in the buffer zone, deep. Yeah, that's a wind.
Who sang that song in the 80s, Going into the Danger Zone? Is that from Top Gun? It's a really old reference. It's going into the buffer zone. That's what I think. The danger zone, the buffer zone. It's going into it.
How you doing, bud? Good. I'm gonna hang around with these other guys here. Yeah, hit the patch and like something to those guys. Please. Yes, sir.
You gotta go behind the buffer zone, okay? Or you're gonna be subject to arrest. Go follow them.
Okay.
You're being told right now, and you're alive, and you're being.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
So, I'm not media.
No, you're not. Go back there. You're being subject to being arrested.
Can I come when she comes into court? Can I follow her?
No, you can't.
Not even. I have to go outside the buffer forever.
No, you can't.
Forever. So you're saying I can never step foot in the forever. You saying I have to stay away forever, officer? Forever? Forever? Never come back here ever? As long as I live? Is that what you're saying, officer? No, Tom CPU. We're just saying while the Karen Read trial is going on, scat. You and your camera scat. You're not media. He's like, I'm not media? No, you're not media. Oh, okay. Have a nice day. This
Go. Have a good day, sir. It is. Okay.
And there's another clip where someone brought their Boston Red Sox flag and got booted. So that's some reporting from Tom CPU in the danger zone. Thank you. It's Kenny Loggins. Thank you, Dean Walker and Frank, for letting me know. It's the Kenny Loggins. What happened to him? All right. So when I talk about innocence fraud, what is innocence fraud? Sometimes people ask. And innocence fraud is a movement that's really, think of the Innocence Project, which was founded by Barry Scheck, who was O.J. Simpson's attorney, to get guilty people under the guise of releasing innocent people, either by misrepresenting DNA, getting eyewitnesses to change their story. I think that the majority of the people that, almost all the people that I've looked at, have been guilty. So I think there may be one or two real cases of innocence, but their fraud far exceeds any kind of innocence. And they're helped by journalists, willing journalists, people like the Five Stones intelligence. judges, lawyers doing it, specialists in all areas, ex-FBI people. Pathologists, coroners. And the reason is it's so lucrative because it makes money on the Hollywood side. So they get rich writing books, making podcasts, selling t-shirts. Like we've seen in this is the first that I've seen in the US, first pre-trial innocence fraud campaign. They're usually done about 14 years after a conviction. So the horror of the crime's worn off, but now they started this pre-trial in order to get Karen Read off. So they use things like 2020 specials, and everybody loves the story of the wrongly accused or wrongly convicted person. But the real point is to not only create precedents like Yannetti did in Commonwealth. Hold on one second. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Commonwealth versus Finney, which was Yannetti's case, that when he argued, and the judge, Cannoni, has also referenced this, Commonwealth versus Finney, where he got Roland Douglas Finney Jr., Marianne Alexander's murderer, out of prison on hearsay evidence concerning alternative suspects that were laughable. Laughable. They also used low IQ, saying Roland Douglas Finney was low IQ when he had served in the United States military, been in Germany, overseas in Germany for 3 years. Are they taking a lot of mentally challenged people? So that's a common tactic. So I've been talking about this since the beginning of my podcast. Thought we'd review. Actual Justice Warrior had a really good summation. And this was a video he did about the Southern California Innocence Project, basically eliciting a confession via a romance between the lawyer and another inmate who had nothing to lose by confessing to her client's crime and faking evidence, and got him out. So this is how he begins his video, and I thought it was a really good summation of innocence fraud and the movement in general.
So one of the toughest pills to swallow for people, even out there in my audience, is that the Innocence Project is not a well-meaning organization that started off good and eventually got corrupt and had all these problems, or has these isolated incidents where they're advocating for guilty people. From the jump, the Innocence Project was founded by a member of O.J. Simpson's legal team, somebody who is absolutely guilty, and they are ideologically motivated to undermine and subvert the criminal justice system by any means necessary. Essentially, you should think of them as Antifa with law degrees. And what we're going to talk about today is a murderer who was gotten out of prison by the Innocence Project in California, in San Francisco, who received the largest payout in San Francisco history of $8 million, and how it was just revealed by the San Francisco Standard that the attorney for this murderer, who was 100% guilty, knew that he was guilty and essentially entered into a romantic relationship and gave financial payouts to a person to confess in order to say that this guilty man was not involved. I'm going to break down this whole case for you, but understand it's not isolated, it's not unique, it's not a one-off, it's what the Innocence Project does. But before we get into...
Okay, so I thought that was a really good summation by Sean, who's been a guest on this show, friend to this channel. And because he's actually looked into the actual, you have to go to the court records. You cannot trust the media and their summation of the cases. They're wildly inaccurate. I used to have a game with my girlfriend where I used to call her up and I'd read to her the press about a case about an innocent guy who got out of prison thanks to the Innocence Project or some ideologically aligned organization. And then I'd have her guess what the real evidence was against him. And it was always, they always left out, huge damning pieces of evidence, and took a little bit of, and always mixed in with a tiny little bit of truth. There's always a tiny little bit of truth mixed in with a lot of lies. So with that in mind, let's look at this. Basically, it's like a Karen Reed apologist. I mean, that's how I see it. This innocence, this audit of the Canton Police Department that just came out strangely, could not wait 2 weeks, had to come out and poison the jury pool. Let's look at Innocence Fraud Watch's excellent blog on the subject. You can see I was reading it. Killer Karen Reed, retrial sloppy, inaccurate, and misleading. April 2025, independent, quote unquote, independent on-site audit report of Town of Canton Police, Massachusetts by Five Stones Intelligence on murder of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. The independent, this is what they call themselves, independent on-site audit of the Town of Canton Police report can be read in full here. And I also put a separate link in the video description of this episode. All my sources are listed in the description of the episode, if you want to take a look. Page 2 of the audit report states, Five Stone Intelligence was tasked with auditing the Canton Police Department in accordance with the scope of the work order detailed within. Are we going to find out that Five Stone was hired by Karen Reed's defense attorneys like we did with ARCA? When are we going to find out the real relationship between Five Stone and Karen Reed and her defense team? That's what I want to know. Five Stone's report does not make any findings of fact or conclusions of law regarding ongoing criminal investigations or pending legal matters involving the Canton Police Department. The website for Five Stone Intelligence states that Five Stone Intelligence is a leading professional services company based in Miami, Florida, with offices throughout the world, including New York. Although I've never come across them, doesn't mean they're not. That nothing. It means nothing that I don't know them, but they do have offices in New York. Five Stone possesses the world's largest private human intelligence network and supports intelligence collection and analysis, global investigations, and cooperation support for governments and corporations. Page 87 of the audit report is headed Case File Audit of the Death of Boston Police Officer John O'Keefe. Canton Police Audit Committee and Town Residents. The report states, as requested by the Canton Police Audit Committee and Canton Town residents, so people like free Karen readers demanded this. That's what they say. And who is the Police Audit Committee? And how did they get set up? I'd love to know that. The audit team reviewed the initial police response, crime scene investigative actions. See, one of the ways that this movement makes money, and this is a really important point, is once they get a guilty person out of prison or an accused person acquitted, in this case. They will sue for, in this case, if Karen Read gets acquitted, she will sue for wrongful arrest, wrongful, holding her against her will, et cetera, et cetera. And they often get $1 million payouts. So wrongful conviction, they sue for and get these multi-million dollar payouts. So these criminal lawyers are getting very rich, and civil lawyers getting very rich from this grift. Scene investigative actions, police reports, evidence collection, and evidence documentation to ensure policy procedures were followed by Canton PD surrounding the death investigation of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Under a February 2nd, 2022 photograph taken by Craig Walker for the Boston Globe of the tree line separating 32 and 34 Fairview Road aimed in the direction of number 34, the report includes the header, Canton PD calls for service at 34 Fairview Road, Canton, Mass. On January 29th. Immediately under the header, the report states the following. Canton PD receives a call on January 29, 2022 at approximately 5:04. Okay, remember that? 5:04 from Carrie Roberts called the Canton Police Department. Ms. Roberts reports that Mr. O'Keefe had not returned home the previous evening. Reference is made to a call for police on January 29th by Ms. Roberts. So, and then in their own report, they have the same time. Witness testified in 2024 during Karen Read's first trial for her murder of John O'Keefe that Karen had called her for a second time at 5 a.m. on the dot and stated, "John's dead, Carrie, Carrie, Carrie," and then hung up. Carrie Roberts missed Karen Read's first call, which was said to have been made around a minute or two before Karen's 5 a.m. call. The time of the third call between Carrie Roberts and Karen Read is not yet known to the public, as this crucial information was not said out loud during the first 2024 murder trial. Carrie Roberts testified in 2024 that Karen Read called her back sometime after 5 a.m. and stated, "I'm afraid John might be dead." Isn't that the first thought? That your boyfriend might be dead when he doesn't come home in the nor'easter? That he might be dead? That he might have gotten hit by a plow? He might have gotten hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. I was not supposed to stay in Canton last night, and he would never leave Kaylee alone. I think something happened. Carrie Roberts also testified that Karen Read had told her during this third call that she had checked John O'Keefe's niece's phone to see if John had called his niece. In response, Carrie had said to Karen, "Where are you now?" To which Karen had apparently said, "I'm driving. Can I come to your house? Will you drive my car? I don't remember anything from last night." So that's a big sign of deception. Anytime anyone in a murder case says they don't remember anything from last night, it's not something that people who actually have no memory say. And you would remember bits and pieces, but to say you don't remember anything, I totally blacked out. And Karen Read says she remembers everything when she drinks, and she never blacks out. So all these people who said, "Oh, Karen Read was so drunk, there was so much alcohol involved." I know when I was on Court TV yesterday, they played a clip from Barstool Sports where he was saying, "Oh, I think everybody's," was that what it, or was it somewhere else? Hold on. Oh, it's somewhere else. It was another video I was watching. I think someone sent it to me where they were saying, "Oh, so much alcohol was involved. Everyone was so drunk. She didn't know what she did." She knew exactly what she did. She did it willfully. That's what the state intends to prove, and purposely, and remembers everything. I don't remember anything from last night. If she forgot everything, if everything was alcohol was involved, she forgot everything, she wouldn't have a idea that John O'Keefe, something terrible happened to John O'Keefe. Karen Reed's the only one who had the feeling that something terrible, that John could be dead. Everyone else thought he slept on someone's couch, which is a more normal thing to think. Or got picked up by the police or the hospital or something. Not he's dead. And Karen was the only one who knew right where John O'Keefe was, buried in a pile of snow in the dark corner of the lawn of 34 Fairview. I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything. And statement analysis will tell you that people say I don't remember anything are people who are trying to willfully deceive you. Right, I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back, more on this audit. Big errors coming up. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back in 1 or 2 minutes.
Mic check, Roberta strides through the static haze. True crime Gotham where the shadows play their plays. Fraudsters fold when a spotlight beams. Fact focused queen busting propaganda schemes. Glass shatter lies echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light. Hard task warrior, dissecting state and defense. Twisted innocence, claims breaking pretense. Gotham's truth seeker cuts clean with the blade. Facts in the forefront, no justice gets swayed. Cold facts drip heavy, real talk unfurls. Cracking cases open like oysters with pearls. Innocence gimmicks crumble to dust in the wind. For victims, her creed, justice till the end. Headphones blazing, she drops heavy artillery. Narratives twisted, meet blunt object civility. Roberta got receipts that unravel the ploy, exposing the lies these fraudsters deploy. Glass shatters lies, echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, back to okay. So she said she didn't remember anything. I was not supposed to stay in Canton last night. You would never leave Kaylee alone, Karen Reed said, where we last left it off. Carrie Roberts also testified that Karen Reed had told her during this third cell phone call that she had checked John O'Keefe's niece's phone to see if John had called his niece. In response, Carrie had said to Karen, "Where are you now?" To which Karen had apparently said, "I'm driving. Can I come to your house? Will you drive my car? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything." Accurate facts and accurate timings in cases like this matter and are crucial, especially when has been a long-running fraudulent public relations spin campaign instigated by the accused murderer and her team of defense lawyers, and especially when all of the actual facts of the case are not yet in the public domain. Like, for example, the cell data from witness Kerry Roberts' phone, which was cloned by Massachusetts State Police at around the same time as witness Jennifer McCabe's phone. These public relations spin campaigns place an overwhelming amount of misinformation and disinformation into the public domain, which is ripe for the picking by sloppy audit teams from organizations like Five Stone Intelligence. Karen Reed would not have been driving before 5:07 when John O'Keefe's Ring camera picked her backing up outside of his garage at Meadows Avenue, Canton. So where did the audit team from Five Stones Intelligence get the 5:04 time of Kerry Roberts calling Canton Police Department from? During the 2024 trial, the time of Kerry Roberts' call to the Canton police was suggested to have been made nearer to 5:30 a.m. If Kerry Roberts did call Canton police at 5:04 a.m., was Kerry again confused over timings of some events due to the stress and anxiety she may have been experiencing at the time? And never mind also Karen Reed acting hysterical, as this report says, acting hysterical, keyword acting, and putting everyone screaming and putting everyone into a fear state so that they could be more easily manipulated. And also so that she could feign that she was out of her mind, asking questions like, is the blood from my period? So that she could get sectioned, so that she didn't have to talk to the police. That was part of her big ruse that morning. After calling Kerry Roberts at 5 a.m. on the dot, Karen Reed called Catherine Camerano for 2 minutes and 4 seconds. Therefore, if Kerry Roberts did call Canton police at 5:04, then she must have spoken to Karen Reed right after she finished her call with Catherine. Sergeant Seraph arrived on the scene just after 6:10 a.m. Five Stones Intelligence also states in their audit report that Sergeant Seraph arrives at 34 Fairview Road at 6:09 a.m. However, in reality, Sergeant Seraph's cruiser did not come to a stop behind Kerry Roberts' car until around 6:10:04 a.m. The still image below from the dash cam footage evidences Sergeant Seraph's driving up to the scene at 6:09:59 a.m., which captures Kerry Roberts, Karen Reed, and Jennifer McCabe huddled on the ground around John O'Keefe's body. Sergeant Seraph did not get out of his cruiser until around 6:10:09 and can be heard on his cruiser's watch guard dash cam audio, which I've gone over. There's a whole episode I did on that watch guard dash cam audio, immediately stating what happened. Therefore, the audit report 6:09 timing is inaccurate and out by at least a minute. The below video clip captures Sergeant Seraph's approximate 6:10 arrival on scene. You guys want to watch it?
Here's a video of a woman using the Wi-Fi detector to discover the hidden camera in what appears to be her Airbnb, and it looks.
Quickest way to smooth wrinkled skin. Moisturizer helps your skin, right? Nope. What?
Okay, so that's there he is.
Don't buy another pair of glasses until you've.
Okay. EMS arrived on scene just before Officer Mullaney Asking the three women what happened, Sergeant Seraph checked John O'Keefe's skin and it was cold to the touch. The Canton Police Department incident report from 2002, which includes a brief summary report from Sergeant Seraph, states that when he went to get the AED device from his cruiser, at the same moment the Canton Fire Department was arriving. Five Stone Intelligence falsely states in their audit report that the Canton PD Mullaney arrived in concert with the 5 rescue personnel. Not only does the April 2025 audit report have the 2 events in the wrong order, they again have stated the wrong timings. Canton Fire Department and Emergency Medical Services arrived on scene nearer to around 6:11 a.m. Plow driver Lucky Loughran passed by Fairview Road in his Franken truck at around 6:50 a.m. This was the same time Officer Mullaney was turning onto 34 Fairview. The still image below shows the lights from Officer Mullaney's cruiser at 6:58 a.m. as he drives towards Carrie Roberts' car. And if, as alleged in the audit report, Canton Police Officer Mullaney arrived and observed a female conducting CPR on John O'Keefe at 6:12 a.m., this could not have been Karen Reed or Jennifer McCabe, because at around 6:11:26, both women were captured on Sergeant Seraph's dash cam standing near and behind Carrie's car. There they are. And Officer Mullaney was captured on Sergeant Seraph's dash cam, arriving on foot, having exited his cruiser patrol by 6:11:31 as per still images. A member of the Canton Fire and Rescue personnel, possibly firefighter and paramedic, Matthew Kelly, can be seen in the still image below, which clearly shows the time of this event at 6:11:38 a.m. The 2 still images below, again from Sergeant Seraph's dash cam footage, show 6:11:45 a.m. and 6:11:58 a.m. events from the scene. So not doing, you can see they're not doing CPR, and Karen Reed never did any CPR, so to speak. Karen Reed got on top of John O'Keefe's body, took her shirt up, lifted his shirt up, and kind of grinded on him. It was so bizarre to allegedly warm him up, she said. But she never cleared his airwaves. She never did CPR. Even Karen Reed admits she did no CPR when she said, I didn't even know if I was doing it correctly. Because I don't believe she was doing it. They all seemed to know he was dead. Sergeant Good arrived after 6:16 a.m. The audit report also falsely states Canton Police Department Sergeant Sean Good arrived at the scene at 6:14, which is 2 minutes out. Is really Sergeant Good? In reality, Sergeant Good did not arrive on the scene until just after 6:16 a.m. Also, when the incorrect 6:14, the audit report states that Ms. Reed and Ms. McCabe were placed in the back seat of the patrol car 6:82. This event could obviously not have occurred until after Sergeant Good had arrived on scene just after 6:16 and after he had spoken to his colleagues for an update. Over 10 minutes out. The 5 Stone Intelligent Audit Report includes the following 2 images, and underneath the images it states that they are ring camera photos of Ms. Reed's Lexus SUV and Ms. Roberts' SUV and Mr. O'Keefe's house at around 5 5:35 a.m. on January 29th. But Karen Reed did not arrive at the McCabe's house on Country Lane until just after 5:35. So this is the time they say these photos are around the time. I mean, I guess a lawyer would say, well, they said it was around that time, but it's 10 minutes away. I mean, how close is around 5:35? Because that's the time that Karen Reed showed up at the McCabe's, screaming on the lawn, Jen! Jen! Putting the McCabe's in a fierce state of mind. In an emergency state of mind. Or trying to. Jennifer McCabe said she had to really, my memory of her testimony is that she really had to try to remain calm the whole time because Karen Reed is screaming and carrying on and trying, all the way to 34 Fairview Road. She was in the back seat and she was screaming in between the seats, the front seats, going, Jen, Carrie. I mean, it must have been just like a nightmare. But Karen Reed did not arrive at McCabe's house. Okay, we got that. So they have it 10 minutes off. So this is the organization that's telling the Canton Police Department how to do things for maximum accuracy and efficiency and everything, to be giving, producing A+ quality work when they're producing C+, C- work at best. Irrational and asinine observations and findings, the audit team assessment in relation to the response and crime scene procedures carried out by the Canton PD officers on January 29, 2022 is irrational and asinine. The report states first responding officers should have photographed Boston police officer John O'Keefe at the location where he was found before fire rescue moved him to the rescue. What difference would that have made? Are they saying that would have disproved a conspiracy? When there's time for, sure, it would have been nice, but I'm just wondering why this is of utmost importance, more important than John O'Keefe's life. When there's time for first responding officers, when was there time for first responding officers to photograph Boston police officer John O'Keefe in situ? And should this type of irrational and asinine behavior be encouraged, especially under such adverse weather conditions? How would the audit team feel if their loved one who was denied immediate life-saving care because a police officer needed to take in situ photos to satisfy an irrational thinking auditor? And it's not clear if the audit team from Five Stones Intelligence have intentionally got so many crucial facts wrong in the report on this case, or if they had been hoodwinked by the large volume of propaganda in the public domain. However, the audit team do not appear to have an appreciation for the adverse weather conditions on January 29, 2022, which not only stopped many people from leaving their homes, but was also extremely hazardous. Great point. Yeah, it's like you risk your life. You go out in a nor'easter and risk your life to try to save someone else and then come back with your little note takings. I mean, it's just, this is going to be used by Karen Reed's defense team. And if you don't want to bet your life on this sloppy police work, don't bet Karen Reed's life. That's the famous defense lawyer's refrain. Dash cam footage from Sergeant Seraph's police cruiser 683 from January 29, 2022, from around 6:06 a.m. to around 6:13 can be watched below. Should we watch it? I haven't watched it since the thing. Can we stand to.
Here's a video of a woman using the Wi-Fi detector to discover the hidden camera in what appears to be her Airbnb. And
this is how I instantly improved my vision without quitting smoking. I always knew smoking could affect my health, but
Officer Sarif, what's up on the screen? Is that what you recall as far as the sort of visibility and roadway conditions when you first left the church parking lot?
Yes.
And this is you sort of leaving from the church parking lot as you're going to 34th, correct?
Yes.
Now, there are a number of different sort of things up on this screen. There's an indication as far as the speed that the vehicle is going, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And where is that located, if you could, with the laser pointer there?
That's right. Oops, sorry.
Now, along sort of the bottom of that particular video, there's an indication as far as mic, brakes, lights, sign, correct?
Correct.
If those are activated, is there any sort of change in sort of the depiction there? Does it change sort of color or anything like that that you're aware of?
I don't know.
Okay. And the 683 on the bottom right corner, is that the cruiser that you were in that day?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, as far as sort of the top middle of this video, there's a date and a time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
As far as you're aware, that date and time that's up there, that's accurate to when this occurred, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we're sort of looking in real time, correct?
Correct.
So, Ms. Yeoman, if you could just let it run.
Look at the terrible visibility.
I'm sorry, if you could stop for just briefly. So, Officer Sarif, this road you're traversing at this point, this is Washington Street, is that correct?
That is correct.
And at some point, you're going to then travel through and then take a right onto Fairview, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. If you could, just for the jury's sake, as you approach Fairview and as you're taking that right turn, just direct their attention to the fact that that's when you're turning onto Fairview.
Sure.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can go ahead.
Wow, it's so scary. It's like a scary ride. It's like some scary ride at Disney World or something. That's what I'm thinking. Looking at it, like I know it's not Disney World, I know, but it's going through red lights. You can barely see. And I've driven in snow and ice, and you can skid out any minute. Law review, dropping in to say love your work and grateful for your dedication and reporting. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Dean Walker, thanks for the super sticker. Thanks for supporting the channel, y'all. Okay.
So this right here is Chapman Street.
For those listening on podcasts, we're just watching the footage of the police cruiser on his way to 34 Fairview, and just the conditions are terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible conditions. You can barely see out the window. You can see for a little while. You can see pretty clearly when the windshield wiper passes by. And then very quickly, the window is completely covered in snow and ice, and it's hard to see until the windshield wiper goes again. The roads are covered in a thin layer with what looks like ice and snow. All right. Terrifying. Terrifying. That's what I have to say about that. Terrifying. Terrifying journey. And for these pencil pushers, I mean, it just reminded me, you know what it reminded me of? I'll tell you what it reminded me of. What it reminded me of so much. Has anyone seen this movie? Hold on 1 second. This movie, Office Space, this scene.
Next batter looks like a Peter Gibbons. Oh, there you are. We were just talking about you. You must be Peter Gibbons. Terrific. I'm Bob Slidell. This is my associate, Bob Porter. Oh, hi, Bob. Bob? Pretty much go ahead and grab a seat and join us for a minute or two. You see, what we're actually trying to do here is we're trying to get a feel for how people spend their day at work. So, if you would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour.
Space out?
Yeah. I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
I only do, I would, it's not that I just don't care, right? I mean, these guys that come in and determine efficiency, and does it remind me of the two Bobs from Office Space? How to tell you how to be more efficient. That's what this audit reminds me of. And it may help Karen Reed get away with murder or some smaller charge. They'll all agree on some smaller charge. Or they might acquit her. Although there have been some really good news for Free Karen Reed. Really good news for this side, and bad news for Free Karen Reed, in that the Commonwealth's expert that they were trying to get out is coming in. So he's coming in, and what's so funny is they say, the Free Karen Readers, and Karen Reed herself says, well, the Commonwealth, they just don't want to hear the truth. They want to get rid of every single defense witness, which is exactly what the defense has done. Exactly what the defense has done. The other thing I want to mention about this audit, and then I'm going to talk about Hank Brennan and his assessment of the Free Karen Reed propaganda campaign, is that they mentioned one other case, which is the Sandra Birchmore case, which until I know more information about, I cannot form an opinion about. I do not know. I do not know what happened there. There is just too much noise in the public domain, and I tend to think that the actual people who do the autopsy on a body tend to be right. Doesn't mean they're always right, but tend to be right. So the fact that they brought in They did a second autopsy way after the fact under public pressure makes me worried. That's all I'm going to say. Worried. I'll wait. I'm going to wait to form an opinion, but I'm certainly not joining in the kind of true crime hysteria that this was not a ending of it all, and in fact it was a murder. I have to see more evidence. I have to see more real evidence in a courtroom and not in the court of public opinion. So they mentioned one other case, which is Sandra Birchmore. And if you look at this, let's just look at the audit itself for a second. Why that case? That's the case that's gotten a lot of public attention. And I'm not convinced if they do everything that the Five Stones intelligence tell them to do. It's like they did this audit. They asked for this audit under the pressure of free Karen Reed people, but with the idea like, we'll invite independent people and they'll tell us what to do, so we'll avoid an innocence fraud campaign like this ever happening again in this town. It may not happen quickly. There may not be another one immediately. But I believe if they did everything, they'll take every bit of advice from Five Stones, this will not stop Monday morning quarterback and criticism from another organization, from another defense team, from the court of public opinion, from the court of armchair detectives who were safely in their pajamas and slippers at the time that these police officers were out in a nor'easter answering a call. So here it is. Let's take a look at it together. So they start out with an executive summary. They said they spent 12 weeks from November 18th, 2024 to March 30th, 2025 at the Canton Police Department, and they conducted interviews over the following several months. I'm sorry. Five Stone conducted interviews of all the members of the Canton Police Department, including over 40 police officers and other town employees. Many of the interviews were completed under the conditions of anonymity. As part of the inquiry, our team examined more than 98 policies, procedures, rules, and regulations. Recommendations were put forward in various aspects of the project, such as professional standards, civilian grievances and accountability, crime scene protocols, advanced training and compliance with the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. In conducting this audit, we received full cooperation from Chief Helena Rafferty and other members of the police department and town employees. Prior to this audit, no member of the Five Stone audit team had ever met any current, former employees of the Canton Police Department, the Police Audit Committee, or the Select Board. This report was not provided to any members of the department and or town employees prior to April 1st, 2025. Right, we just waited till the beginning of Karen Reed's trial to release this, right at jury selection. I just find that disgusting. Right when there's a gag, too, when they know that Karen Reed, it's like we threw the team Karen Reed a bone. Why, I have no idea. The audit team provided updates to Robert McCarthy, chairperson on the Police Audit Committee. And then included in the audit, assessments of policy compliance with standards of law enforcement or accreditation organizations, assessment of the application of policy in recent investigations, assessment of the written policy and protocols as applied in recent investigations, and presentations of findings and recommendations. Not included in the audit, reinvestigation of any cases or finding of facts. But they go through the John O'Keefe's murder and get so many of the details wrong. So that's not supposed to be a finding of fact when they say this happened at this time and this happened at that time. Analysis of evidence collected in do they mean that they didn't come to any conclusion on Karen Read's guilt? Is that what they mean by that? Certainly they presented a lot of things that weren't facts as facts. Analysis of evidence collected in ongoing or prior criminal cases, rendering any opinion of guilt or innocence of a party. So that's not what that means. What does reinvestigation? So they didn't go through the evidence and try to solve it? They just brought up wrong times and made conclusions from their going through it wrongly. Okay. Anyway, it just, first responders should have photographed. We went through this. All interviews of critical witnesses should be done at the Canton Police Department. Consensual recorded witnesses. What if there was what if they were taking Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts to the police station? They had a massive accident and spun out. Would their conclusions be the same? And Jennifer McCabe could not be interviewed because they were in ICU for weeks about what happened on the scene. Wouldn't they say they should have interviewed them at the scene and not at the police station? Do you see how easy this is to do? To Monday morning quarterback? The Massachusetts State Police, along with the Canton PD, should have maintained a police presence, 34 Fairview Road, pending the secondary search conducted. So all night in a nor'easter, they should have had people there. All video footage maintained on Canton PD computer. Is that what they're talking about? The secondary search. I guess they're saying all through the day in a nor'easter. All right. Canton PD computer systems of Karen Read's Lexus while it was housed at Canton PD from January 29th through February 2nd, 2022 should have been requested and turned over early in the Karen Read case to lead investigators for any action as deemed appropriate. Exactly the video footage that Karen Read and her defense team have been trying to get along with the metadata. So that'll just give you an idea. The Canton, it's 88 pages. I may circle back to this sometime. But what it really reminded me of is this coming out is exactly what Hank Brennan talked about. I believe March 4th hearing. Does anybody remember this?
As the court is aware, there are certain materials throughout the duration of this case that have been disclosed to the defense pursuant to protective orders. Protective orders are sacred. If there was no need for protective order, there wouldn't be a need for court intervention to protect the material. When an attorney violates Mass Rule of Criminal Procedure 48, the court can impose sanctions. In this instance, that was the genesis for this motion, there was recently provided materials that the court ordered the defense not to disclose to the public. Those materials, which is some of very important materials. In the reciprocal discovery motion, the defense put the materials into the public domain.
And that's how they always got. See, This is very much in line with Karen Reed. The reason I'm so suspicious of this independent audit is it reminds me so much of ARCA's independent investigation, and that other departments like the Attorney General's office was so alarmed and had to do an investigation into John O'Keefe's death and how it was handled by the Canton Police Department. And then we find out that Karen Reed and her lawyer, David Yannetti, started that federal investigation just to make something, which is the basis of every kind of fraud, make something look like something it's not. So make this look like there was something nefarious going on. Right? So I just find this very odd that they could not hold off until after the jury, at least till after the jury was picked, if not till after Karen Reed's trial. Why does it have to be released right when the jury's being picked? It's just such suspicious timing for me. And this is how they've gotten out material. The feds, mentioning these federal investigations in their motions, releasing details into the public domain to whip up the public. So this seems also suspiciously timed to whip up the free Karen readers. Like there was some failing in the police department. They couldn't go with something nefarious happened because they had zero evidence of that. Not even something to hone in on and exaggerate. So they went with that they were just not up to standards and practices, and this will be used in Karen Reed's trial.
Despite the court's protective order. Now, it's important for the court to determine the nature of that violation because the ability of the court to sanction is broad and wide. There have been other violations, but at this point, a month before trial, given the history of this case, it is important to make sure that these type of violations don't happen again. What stands out to me in the reciprocal discovery motion that the defense used as a vehicle to disseminate this information to the public is that they create an argument suggesting why it is important to include this information. In the memorandum, page 9, what they suggest to the court is because the truth.
Yeah, Canton, there's nothing wrong with Canton, says Larry P. I have friends and relatives there. I know people who live in Norwood, and that I know exactly where that Shaw's supermarket is, where the rolling rally, where everyone met before the rolling rally. Excuse me. It's the angry Lopez Select Board, butthurt liberals. Well, I probably have some liberals in my audience. They said everyone else in the town knows Karen is guilty. That's interesting. Nice community, says Miss Lisa. Yeah, it's an extremely nice area and community. People. Very Irish.
Did not want to watch the closing. It implied that he had been following the entire trial. There's absolutely no reasonable interpretation whatsoever that because a witness, like any other witness, who was not bound by a sequestration order at the time of closing, didn't want to watch a closing, there was no good faith basis whatsoever that witness watched other parts of trial.
Yeah, I've been hearing reports. So originally when Karen Reed was raising money for her through Alan Jackson's legal firm, non-tax deductible, meaning it's not a charity, They said that any excess money, LOL, will be given to the Innocence Project. And now she says she's giving it to Black Lives Matters, who got caught in a zillion scams like buying houses. And does anybody remember that? Like just millions just went up in smoke. Nobody knows where it went. And they're all living, the founders of BLM are all living in these giant houses. So isn't it curious that the fraud movement of Free Karen Reed wants to give it to two fraud organizations? Innocence Project and BLM.
It is an empty shell to make that suggestion, which then gives them the tunnel to put this information into the public. And when you look at the nature of the information, it's obvious why the defense wants this information of the public. It's part of the consistent public relations campaign they have sought. It is a month before trial, and rather than discuss the facts and litigate the facts in front of the jury, it is a deliberate, ongoing, strategic investment to reach the potential jury pool. And it doesn't matter if it's attacking the trial court, the state police, the prosecutor, the prosecutor's office, witnesses. It is saturating the public.
Did you say attacking the state police? Attacking the Canton police? You don't say? Attacking the police. It's almost like I wrote a song about that. Say, remember my song about Alan Jackson? When in doubt, blaming the police. The refrain of innocence fraud campaigns everywhere. One of many.
With sometimes disinformation, parts of information that inevitably is going to make a juror's job much more harder. It is unfair to the court. It's unfair to the people of the Commonwealth. It's unfair to the Commonwealth. It's unfair to the prospective jurors. And so not only is there really not a logical or a reasonable basis to put this information in, but when we look at the nature of the information, it becomes clear. And so we turned over this information 3 times. We just turned it over as a text message, and notice of discovery 51, a protective order was issued, docket 416. We produced it, notice of discovery 57. And again, there was a protective order. And then finally, notice of discovery 58 with a protective order. This is just some of the materials. It is beyond dispute that the defense violated that protective order. So considering sanctions, I ask Your Honor to consider the history of efforts by the defense in this case to disseminate information or to make statements that should not reach a prospective juror before this jury trial starts in less than a month. Now, after they disseminated this information, it wasn't within 24 hours. It was.
Do you get what Hank Brennan's saying? He's saying, consider how this team has tried to poison the jury pool. And I would consider this quote unquote independent audit in that category. They become part of the fraud. Karen Reed has a million enablers. I mean, I almost entitled this episode, Who Helped Karen Reed? Because she's had so much help from journalists, quote unquote, writers, let's call them writers, who would write fictional tales like Gretchen Voss and write Karen Reed what Karen Reed tells her is absolute fact and not correct it. And get promises by Alan Jackson behind the scenes and given information she shouldn't have and told to hold off on reporting on it until he puts it in an unrelated filing. That's how they've used the court to propagandize the public and push this innocence fraud campaign. With the help of the public, with the help of Turtle Boy, with the help of lawyers, YouTube lawyers who want a big audience, and YouTubers who want to cash in and get a big audience because The conspiracy angle is so much more interesting. You can go all different ways. You don't have to, like I do, have to stick to the facts. You have a zillion different ways you can go with what if. What if this happened? And reporting things as fact that are just from Karen Read and her lawyer imagination.
Within 24 hours, this was in the local news, the national news, newspapers, online, and it seems that was the very purpose it was spit out into the community. And so the common position is there needs to be a sanction to stop violations of protective orders and violations of the rules of trying to convince the public before trial about a certain side's position. We've had a history in this case that predated me, docket 111, docket 262, where there have been efforts by the Commonwealth to stop, prevent extrajudicial statements, and despite that, it has not happened. There's never been a sanction by the court imposing an obligation for the defense to stop. Rule 3.6 is clear. A lawyer who is participating or has participated in the investigation or litigation of a matter shall not make an extrajudicial statement that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of public communications and will have a substantial likelihood of materiality prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in that matter.
How many times has Karen Read's lawyer teams willfully and purposely broken that? This is why Gretchen Voss, and how did I know Gretchen Voss was part of the fraud when everyone was like, oh, why are you attacking Gretchen Voss? She thinks Karen is guilty of something. Everyone on Free Karen Read hates her because she never corrected any of the errors that she made in her piece. And it was all told from Karen Read and her lawyer's point of view. I believe her lawyers sought her out. We haven't found out yet. Gretchen Voss is on the witness list. Maybe we'll find out in the retrial if Karen Read and her lawyers sought her out, just the way they sought out the ID Discovery TV show. Boy, that backfired. Everyone saw Karen Read for the psychopath that she is. I wouldn't say everyone. There's still some people that got duped by it. But certainly it's coming in, Karen Read saying, Jennifer McCabe's going down or I'm going down. That doesn't sound like an innocent woman. That sounds like someone trying to save their own butt. No? I mean, for everyone who lives on planet Earth, I love how you get into these arguments in true crime that are so improbable. Well, what Karen Read was really saying is, I live on planet Earth, where there's a spectrum of normal human behavior. And saying either Jennifer McCabe's going down or I'm going down pings high on the guilty spectrum for me. It's what a guilty person would say. I'm not going down for my own actions. I'd rather have an innocent person. Isn't that the irony? The irony of the Free Karen Read campaign? This is supposed to be about getting off a quote-unquote innocent woman who's been wrongfully accused when they've gone around and wrongfully accused everyone else of Karen Read's own crime. Isn't that the irony? It's nothing new for innocent fraud campaigns. They'll go from wildly, totally, not even unlikely, impossible subjects, alternative suspects and subjects, and go from alternative suspect to alternative suspect. And no one said, well, what happened to the last guy who was supposed to have done it? It's just the public is always so hungry, at least the true crime public is, for tell me another story. Tell me something sensational and titillating. And innocence fraud campaigns can always provide it because they can go anywhere with their imagination, anywhere. To animals. They blamed animals, turtles, owls. Talking about the West Memphis 3, they blamed turtles. Michael Peterson blamed an owl, and people will buy it. The owl did it. How an owl is going to fracture a woman's cartilage, we'll never know.
It's important that all parties follow that rule. And there is no retort. The Commonwealth cannot fight fire with fire. I receive inquiries and calls, which I ignore and don't answer all the time because my obligation is a little bit different. It's to ensure a fair trial. Nevertheless, when these...
Okay. You'll need to look at the facts beginning with ARCA. Y'all need to look at the facts beginning with ARCA. ARCA was hired by Karen Reed's defense team, and they were given only information handpicked by Karen Reed's defense team. And they scripted their testimony with the help of Alan Jackson into the narrative that the defense wanted to put out. It has been scientifically proven. No, it hasn't. They were hired guns by the... Have you ever heard of a hired gun? Ms. Holmes, 66? That's what they were. They were hired guns by the defense. It has been scientifically proven, only cherry picking some evidence. They even testified on the stand that if they were given more evidence by the Commonwealth, it wouldn't change their opinion. How is that at all scientific? That John O'Keefe was not hit by a vehicle, including Karen's SUV. Look at the facts. They're not facts. Your facts aren't facts. You know what is a fact? That Karen Reed puts herself at the scene of the crime, that she reversed going 24 miles an hour with her foot 75% on the gas pedal, and her smashed to smithereens taillight was found embedded in John O'Keefe's shirt. And pieces of Karen Reed's taillight had John O'Keefe's DNA on it. And there was no time to plant the evidence. The car was already on the way to the Sally part, and the CERT team was arriving.
Type of violations occur, there really is nothing to undo the taint. The history of these violations date back early on in the case, and they continue to this day. Fox 25, the defense is quoted, certainly the Massachusetts State Police is involved. There are people that were in that house that are involved. Brian Albert is involved. Jennifer McCabe is involved. The rest of the folks that were in that house, there's some level of involvement by every one of them. Specifically, 3.6 is particularly concerned about disparaging witnesses, about giving a one-side opinion that may not be based in fact and truth about a witness. It is specifically concerned about the credibility of witnesses. There's been an ongoing promotion to talk about ARCA and federal witnesses and what the opinions are, which aren't in line with reality, the reports, or the testimony. It is a campaign. In addition to this recent...
It is a campaign.
Protective order violation that got attention that money couldn't buy for a party. Other information that was provided in our case, then provided in a collateral case, was
It brought attention money couldn't buy. Documentary crews, everyone wanting to get rich on this story, this sensational story, and win awards, because you also win awards, like Sarah Koenig did for her Innocence Fraud podcast about Heyman killer, Adnan Syed. Got him out of prison thanks to a Open Society Foundation backed pro-criminal district attorney and an innocence clinic, because it's also in our universities. We're teaching this. We're poisoning the jury pool by indoctrinating young people into this ideology. That everybody convicted is just a little guy up against the system, just waiting to be freed with real evidence. And our police officers are so corrupt all the time. And don't look at just the evidence presented. Think, what if? That's what we're teaching jurors to do. So this Innocence Clinic wrote about these new suspects that would free Adnan Syed. One of them being Adnan Syed himself, and others being suspects that had been ruled out, meaning that it was impossible, that they had ironclad alibis. And then they used DNA from the bottom of Heyman Lee's shoes, not on her feet, but in the back of her car, tossed in the back of her car, when it was known that Adnan Syed wore gloves doing the crime. Red gloves, red fibers were strangely found in Heyman Lee's car. So he's now walking the street and teaching young people at Georgetown University how to get convicted criminals, killers, out of prison, along with another formerly convicted killer, now turned lawyer, Marty Tankleff. Another who was released on a technicality, and they decided not to retry him. And when they decided not to retry Marty Tankleff, Andrew Cuomo wrote in his decision that Marty Tankleff should in no way be looked at as innocent, and he deserves no wrongful conviction money. That did not stop Marty Tankleff from suing and getting $13.3 million for a bunch of nonsense. He confessed to the crime, and there's a lot of details that are not in the public domain that are in an episode called "Did Keith Raniere's Lawyer Kill His Parents?" about Marty Tankleff and the murder of Arlene and Seymour Tankleff. So both Marty Tankleff and Adnan Syed teach young people at Georgetown University how to investigate claims of innocence. So they're investigating innocence at Georgetown University and trying to reversing convictions.
Again, sent out to the public domain. The defense has not only trampled over 3.6, they've alluded continually about matters that have no basis in fact. January 18, 2024, District Attorney Marcie is well aware he's a target of a federal investigation. We're aware of today's hearing in Norfolk County Superior Court in the Karen Reed matter. In connection with this matter, at no time has the U.S. Attorney's Office named any person or entity. That was the response by the U.S. Attorney's Office after they implied.
Where was that made? Where was the January 18th comment that you just said? Where was that made?
That was made by Mr. Yannetti, and I have a clip of it. He also appeared on Court TV. with Miss Reed. The Commonwealth.
Yeah, this is something. They did appear. This is something that maybe the defense would have gotten away with. They did appear on court TV. It was a clip of a hearing that they made look more like an interview. They re-edited it to make it look more like an interview. Brennan eventually apologized, but I've always been of the opinion that he knew what he was saying. He knew right away. He says at the end of this hearing, no, it wasn't in. He was on court TV. It was at a hearing. He says it. He made those comments in a hearing. And he says, I was advocating for my client. I wasn't propagandizing the public. Patricia Burns says, Roberta, what I find truly offensive is the way these defense attorneys are so willing to get close to an innocence fraud culprit when they get them off or leading up to trial. True. They're very much alike. They both have criminal minds. That's the way I see
Moving
it.
for a protective order for these letters after revealing part of what they contain. The Commonwealth wants to keep the remainder of the letters hidden because the letters contain information that will embarrass District Attorney Marcie and his office. The letters demonstrate that he's a target of a federal investigation for what his office has done to Karen Reed. This is.
Where was that court TV?
I can get the date for Your Honor. Recently, on February 18th, when we were arguing discovery motions, Attorney Little stood up, invoked the boogeyman, a federal investigation, attached themselves to the Birchmore case, and then proceeded to list off a number of troopers' names with no real association or relevance to any discovery motion. And this was a tactic to besmirch these hardworking, dedicated public servants simply.
It was a tactic to besmirch these hardworking, dedicated public servants. What does this sound like? Does this sound like an independent audit? Your latex spouse? Hello. Donna's trial's coming up in June. Get ready. Donna Adelson, I'm talking about, of course. One of Dan Markel's accused killers. Getting ready for work. So listening in, thank you, Roberta and everyone else. Love y'all. Justice for John. All right. Have a good day at work, latex spouse. I hope nobody comes in and criticizes your work playing Monday morning quarterback.
By attaching them to a federal investigation for which there is no boundaries. Well, within 24 hours of those arguments, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office was contacted by the United States Attorney's Office. And let me make crystal clear, they made clear that I could inform the court there is no longer any federal investigation into the investigation of John O'Keefe's death or any related matters. It is closed. It is over. So all those implications and innuendos that erode.
Isn't that interesting also? Right when the federal investigation is closed, here comes another independent investigation. Strangely, an audit of the police department, right in time for jury selection. What a coinky-dink. I would love to know how the timing of this worked out. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait. They couldn't wait until at least the jury was selected to release this into the public domain. They couldn't wait. I don't know. I still hear Free Karen readers saying that the feds are coming any minute to arrest the alternative suspects. Any minute. They've been waiting for years. Any minute, something really exciting is going to happen. Turtle Boy, take my money. Take my money. The feds are coming. The feds are coming. Can't wait. Tell me more about the feds are coming. It's like little children Tell me something exciting is going to happen and the real bad guys are going to get caught. The real corruption. You know what the real corruption is? David Yannetti, Alan Jackson, and Karen Reed and their Innocence fraud campaign. That's the real corruption. And all their enablers.
At the objectivity of our potential jury pool, well, they become more egregious when you see that they're not based on reality of fact. And so I submit that the ongoing, deliberate, purposeful poisoning of the potential jury pool is not only wrong and unfair, it needs to be stopped. And this last incident of taking a private email under a protective order and putting it in a pleading for the world to see is just yet another example. It's one small step.
So they took a Michael Proctor's email and they put it in the public domain to rile up the Free Karen readers, because the federal investigation had been announced that it was over. So what are they going to do? They had to do something.
The marathon. Now they've made their campaign clear why they're doing it and how they're going to do that. If there's any doubt whatsoever about the intentions of these tactics, I've submitted audio clips to you under seal, and I won't repeat what's in them. But that makes abundantly crystal clear why this is happening. And so, inevitably, the court has the ability to sanction. And as an aside, although an accused stands in a different...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just listening to Hank Brennan say, it makes abundantly clear, crystal clear why this is happening. The audio clips that I submitted. I would think one of them would be Alan Jackson talking to Gretchen Voss. But I can't guess. That would be one of my guesses. And saying, here is some information. It's not supposed to be released into the public domain, but here it is. And hold off on it. Printing it. Does everybody remember that? When Alan Jackson told Gretchen Voss, here's information you shouldn't have. Secret information. I'm going to give it to you, but don't write about it until it's in the public domain. And there are very much messages to Turtle Boy like that through the intermediary, Natalie. Hold off. Don't show this. Don't show that. He wasn't supposed to see John O'Keefe's hairs, but Karen Reed showed him. But I think that if we knew the whole story of how this independent, quote unquote, audit took place and the timing of when it was released, I think it would make a lot of sense. Just like ARCA all came together. They were really fishy in trial that they didn't want any other information except the information given to them by Karen Reed's defense team. They lied under oath. Now they're being invited back to lie under oath some more. Please come and give your perjured testimony once again, ARCA. That all made sense when we found out that they were paid $23,925, retained by the defense, and they lied under oath about it. They lied to the public for months and months and months about them being independent and that the Commonwealth could have used them. They're so independent. And now here comes to take their place. Here comes to take the place of ARCA is Five Stones Intelligence. What a shocker. What a shocker.
Or sits in a different position than the attorneys. Grand jury minutes cannot be disseminated either. Not just the paper in substance. They can't be. Doesn't matter who you are. And so the Commonwealth asks the court to consider sanctions so that we can have a fair trial, so that it doesn't limit the parties. It's not retaliatory. We will abide by the same rules. What I suggest is that from now until trial, all pleadings submitted by the defense should be under seal so the court and the Commonwealth can review them and make any objections if there's any material that's private, so that there's no oversights or mistakes or dissemination of protected material. And then if the court and the Commonwealth does not have any objections, then those materials can be provided publicly on the docket. Also, the Commonwealth suggests that the court impose a sanction that the defense must follow Rule 3.6 as the Commonwealth does. No more symposiums on the courthouse stairs. No more interviews with national media. No more statements to press privately behind the scenes over a coffee, putting out information, oftentimes inaccurate, to sell the story before the trial starts so that we can have a trial on fact. There should be a gag order on all of these attorneys. Every single one of them. And the Commonwealth will not speak either. Ms. Reed, I'm not asking for a gag order for. And so in light of the history of these repeated violations, in light of the inability for the defense to restrain themselves, in light of their purposeful, intentional, and obvious efforts, in order to best try to maintain a fair jury.
I was like, why doesn't he want? I had the slowest moment there. I was listening, go, why doesn't he? I was thinking to myself, why doesn't he want Karen Reed? I saw that in the Trump case in New York. They put a gag order on him. Why doesn't he want a gag order on Karen Reed? Of course, he wants her to keep talking. No, Karen Reed's lawyers, please be quiet. But Karen Reed, please keep talking. Please keep talking. Please keep talking. Please keep contradicting yourself and showing yourself to be the psychopathic murderer. We all know you are. Please, please. It's a gift. It's a gift to the Commonwealth every time you give an interview, Karen. This should be by, who's just said, I think it should be more organized. Miss Lisa? I'm just surprised at all the people that have fallen for this, but I always am. The people who haven't educated themselves on innocence fraud. Falling for 5 Stones investigation in their independent audit. And taking it seriously like it means something. People on this side of the fence going, well, they didn't find any conspiracy. Yeah, of course they didn't find any conspiracy. That would be a stretch. What are they going to cite? Turtle Boy's investigation? Says that I would think it will be more organized, this trial. Yes, it should be more streamlined. The second trials by nature are more streamlined. A lot of witnesses are cut out. But I have a feeling, I've always felt she was guilty too. Yeah, me too.
In this case, is to impose those sanctions, and that's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Mr. Yannetti.
Does anybody want to see Yannetti get up in arms and be offended? Just be offended by these accusations when he's caught dead to rights? Anybody? All right. What have I been going for? I've been going for almost 2 hours. Let me see the chat. You want to see Yannetti? Not. Do you see the lawyer? Okay, Eva asks, do you see the lawyer blowing up Karen Reed last night on Court TV? Yeah, I did. He's like, I hate her. I hate her personally. I did see that. I did see a clip of that. I wondered if he would have done that 8 months ago or 10 months ago when her Innocence Fraud campaign was in full swing. That's what I wondered to myself. What did you think of it? It made it seem like he had a personal vendetta against her, rather than I hate her for what she did to John O'Keefe and the way she operates. But certainly I understand. Yeah, I don't know how that wouldn't come off like a personal vendetta now that I think about it. I mean, it's gratifying to see someone show some kind of emotion on court TV. I mean, Vinny has publicly said that he thinks Karen Read is guilty, but he acts like, he's just up there devil's advocating it, basically swinging for Karen Read's Innocence Fraud team. It's bizarre.
Arguing this, you said?
Yes.
It's not so bizarre. I mean, it's par for the course.
Your Honor, as I mentioned at sidebar, I intend to make less of an argument here and provide more of an explanation for the content of my motion regarding the reciprocal discovery. And at the outset, as I mentioned in court last week, this was indeed my motion. Mr. Jackson's name is listed first only because I used a template for the signature block, and that's why I'm addressing this today. And regarding the motion itself, I do acknowledge that I did not file a motion for impoundment when it was filed. And to the extent that that lack of impoundment is not congruous with the protective order.
So basically, I violated a protective order on Michael Proctor's text. I did it, not Alan Jackson. But everybody knows, their argument is like, well, everyone knows that Michael Proctor from the trial, everyone who watched the trial, which is a tiny percentage of the population, even of the free Karen readers actually watched the trial, would know about Michael Proctor's hatred of the police. Oh, I'm sorry, hatred of the lawyers. Unetti's hatred of the police, of Alan Jackson and myself. Everybody already knows about that.
It was neither intentional nor willful. It was an oversight, not an attempt to flout any rules of this court. And while I do ask the court to take my word for that, I do also submit that there is evidence to back up that word. Specifically, I would note that one of the examples I cited in the motion deals with the testimony of a juvenile. And when discussing that testimony in the motion, I made sure to use initials, not full names, so as to protect the juvenile's identity and to comply with the court's protective order.
Do you see how he does what Karen Read does and her defense does? Point elsewhere. See, this is about sanctioning me for using Proctor's text messages that are protected. Since I'm caught dead to rights, I'm going to point elsewhere and show how I was respectful. Teresa, we just went through the new report. See, this is what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about. Why this fraud report was dropped. Not guilty. Watch the new report. Dropped an hour ago. You talking about that? Or is there something new? Something newer from her defense team? Just dropped in time. I think it was dropped a little longer than an hour ago. Is there something even newer while I was doing the show that dropped?
That's evidence that I did not intend.
Here, Unetti's saying, see, I used initials on the juveniles. Anyway. I used initials on the juveniles. I honored that. Sure, I totally crossed over the line and put protective material out into the public domain. He's done so many over the line. Cheating to win things in this case. And the judge is just, she's a former defense attorney herself, and she just all lets it slide. Only one time after they lied months about Arca did she give them a dressing down and then let them lie to her some more an hour later. It's infuriating. It's infuriating watching this trial, isn't it?
To violate the protective order.
This trial, this case.
And that I was mindful of it in that instance. Regarding the communications involving Mr. Proctor, I frankly and simply did not connect that topic to the protective order when I was drafting it. It just did not register with me. It got by me. When I read Mr. Brennan's motion, I went back, looked at the protective order, and then it sure did connect with.
Oh, he didn't know. He didn't know what he was doing, everybody. Who believes that? Who was born yesterday and believes a lawyer put something in a filing and he doesn't look to see what's in the protective order before he files it? Something as explosive as Proctor that riles up the Free Karen readers. All right, that's what I have for today, guys. Have a great night at work, Latex Spouse. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this episode with your family and friends. Leave me a comment. I get so much thought-provoking stuff out of your comments. I read them all, every single one of them. Hit the thumbs up on your way out, please, to help the algorithm. Support my work on Patreon. Shoot me a Venmo. Great way to support the channel, or buy me a coffee, all listed in the description of this episode. I will see you all tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Have a great night, everybody.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system my clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry,